Today, boys and girls, I'm going to show you how to make a mandala and then turn it into reflective symmetry using mirrors. Circles are found all over nature, in flowers and in wood and even the circle inside your eye. Artists always emulate nature, so it only makes sense that artists from around the world have made circular art. Mandala means circle in Sanskrit. Here are some examples of mandalas from the Navajo and the Buddhist and Hindu cultures. First, we're going to make a mandala. I used some markers, but you can use lots of different materials. First, you need a pencil and you need a string to make a large circle, and this basically makes a compass, which is something that mathematicians use, artists use, but a string and a pencil, and guys, let me just tell you, it's not perfect. You know, I had to try and practice and move my markers out of the way, but in the end, I made a very large circle. After I drew my circle, I found several other circles around the house that I could trace, and this kind of helped me create several rows or layers for my mandala. I traced lids, cups, whatever I have laying around. A roll of tape is great because you can trace the outside and the inside, and then you have two different size circles. And then I used a smaller circle in the very center. Then I used my eraser and cleaned up any unwanted lines. Then I used my markers to add color. In this case, I'm using light colors first. You want to use your light colors first so you can use your dark colors to go on top. So in the very center, I have yellow, and on top of yellow, I can add orange. Orange is darker than yellow, so I'm going to do different kinds of designs. I'm going to start with spirals, wavy lines, zigzags. You could add any kind of shapes. I just decided to add a spiral in the center. So I have my light and dark colors together. Now I had used green, the next color, so I used dark green on top. And yeah, I could use blue. If you don't have markers, you could do this with crayons. The same effect works with crayons, color pencils, any materials that you have. And if you don't have any materials that add color, then you can do this with materials that you find around the house and create a mandala using objects. And I will also show you how to do that. After I ran out of ideas, I decided to Google and just use Google to search for mandalas, and I got some really great ideas of different shapes and lines that I could use that I hadn't thought of. I also colored some areas darker so that I had more contrast in my image. After I was finished with my mandala, I took two mirrors. This is where you can play with some reflective symmetry. If you don't have two mirrors at home, you can put your picture up against the mirror at home in your bathroom or in your bedroom. Kind of play around with positioning the mirrors so that you can create some really cool kaleidoscope effects. If you do not have markers at home, you can recreate this with objects that you find in nature or around your house. Check out this really cool shoe mandala. And of course, Barbies. Love it. Boys and girls, I hope you enjoyed watching this video. I can't wait to see what you come up with. Please email me pictures of your creations. Stay tuned for the next part where Miss Chinault talks about how this relates to geometry.
Hi boys and girls, it was so good to see you yesterday on the 4th and 5th grade Zoom meeting. And Miss Hutchens and I did a lesson with you on reflection symmetry. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. We're going to use some of the slides that I prepared for you yesterday. Okay, Miss Hutchens started with drawing a mandala. It was beautiful art, and she used the mirrors to show the reflection. Now I'm going to talk about how that relates to geometry. Okay, on the first side, you can see that what we're really talking about with reflection symmetry is a flip, where something is, literally you're taking an object and flipping it. It's a transformation where a shape is flipped over a line or a reflection or a mirror line. to face the opposite direction. And if you look down at the bottom, it shows how this looks with geometric shapes. It shows you each point of the shape and the line that you flipped over. So the pre-image is what it looked like before we flipped it. Okay, the next slide shows us some photography. Can you zoom in a little bit on those two pictures? Okay, the first one is, these are pictures that people have made that shows that reflective mirror line or line symmetry. The first is the picture of the dog, and there's just a line down the center. But if you notice, the grass at the bottom is exactly the same on both sides of the dog under his snout. That tells you that that dog, that one side is exactly the same as the other. That's a reflection. That one half of the dog was flipped over to show that reflection. Okay, look down at the bottom of the picture of the mountain. I chose this specifically for 4th and 5th grade because we were talking about volcanoes and Mount St. Helens, and we were talking about relief maps and topographic maps. So the line at the bottom where it cuts the mountain in half, the reflection, the mirror is actually the lake. And anytime you have water that is creating the reflection, the image is going to blur just a little bit. Okay, let's go to the next slide. The next two slides show artwork. This is artwork that artists have done, student artists, that they wanted to show the line of symmetry or the reflection or mirror line. So you can see through the center, and the next two pictures as well. And it can be vertical, it can be horizontal, it can also be diagonal in any direction, diagonal. Okay? Now, with geometry, that you saw a little bit of this on the first slide. With geometry, it's easy to see that on graph paper. Graph paper helps you to really understand the flip of the object that you did, because it should be identical on both sides. So this is my original image. When I flipped the E over, notice the same amount of squares. It's identical on each side of my graph paper. And it's a mirror image, or the reflected shape of the letter E. All right, let's go to the next one. And you can see it looks exactly the same. Now a slide would be if I took this piece and slid it across. The slide in this case looks just exactly like the flip. So I could have taken this and slid it across. It wouldn't have been a reflection, it wouldn't have been a reflip, but I took this and I flipped it over, and you can see the spacing in between has to be the same on both sides of the mirror line. All right, let's go to the next one. This also shows you a geometric shape that I flipped over. It could have also been a slide. A lot of times the way you can tell the difference if something is a flip or a slide, it's hard to tell here because they look exactly the same. But I have to have, if I just slid it over, I might not have the exact spacing on each side, but I could. So sometimes if you see, if this piece was over here, you would know, oh, Miss Chinault slid that across. She didn't flip it across, so it's exactly the same. Let's come back to this slide real quick. Since I was talking about flips and slides, if I slid this across, it would not look like this. So this could never be called a slide. It had to be a flip because you can see that the E changed shapes. Okay, that's all I have for you today, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you.